Sigaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Mayapur Navadvitam Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada.
What do you got going on here? Hey, your phone? This one's my phone. Oh, okay. That's your phone. Oh, it's not my phone. It's Gauranga's phone. Gauranga.
So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 638, right?
No, 40.
Oh, 48, I mean.
Oh, what the? That's not that. Sure, you guys get it.
3:15:48.
Yeah.
49. Sorry.
49.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Kamam
Kamam
Bhavaha
Bhavaha
Swa
Vrijnai
Virginai Nirayeshu
Nirayeshu
Naha
Stat
Stat Chetaha
Chetaha
Ali
Vat
Yadi Nu Te Padayo Rameta Vachaha Cha Na Tulasi Vat Yadi Te Angri Shobha Puryeta Te Guna Ganai Yadi Karna Randraha Kamam Bhavasva Vrijanair Nirayeshu Nastak.
Kamam Bhavasva Vrijanair Nirayeshu Nastak.
Cheto Livadyadinute Padayo Rameta.
Cheto Livadyadinute Padayo Rameta.
Vachaschanas Tulasi Vadyaditengri Shobha.
Vachaschanas Tulasi Vadyaditengri Shobha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha.
Kamam bhava svavirjaner nirayeshu nastak.
Kamam bhava svavirjaner nirayeshu nastak.
Cheto livadyadinute padayo ramita.
Cheto livadyadinute padayo ramita.
Vachaschanas tulasi vadyaditengri shobha.
Vachaschanas tulasi vadyaditengri shobha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha.
Kamam bhavasva virjaner nirayeshu nastak.
Kamam bhavasva virjaner nirayeshu nastak.
Cheto livadyadinute padayo rameta.
Cheto livadyadinute padayo rameta.
Vachaschanas tulasi vadyaditengri shobha.
Vachaschanas tulasi vadyaditengri shobha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha.
Kamam bhavasva virjanair nirayeshu nastat.
Kamam bhavasva virjaner nirayeshu nastat.
Cheto livadyadinute padayo rameta.
Cheto livadyadinute padayo rameta.
Vachaschanas tulasi vadyaditengri shobha.
Vachaschanas tulasi vadyaditengri shobha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha.
Puryeta te gunaganer yadikarna randraha. Kamam bhava svavrijaner nirayeshu nastat. Kamam bhava svavrijaner nirayeshu nastat. Cheto levadyadi tu nute parayorameta.
Ceto livadyadi nute parayorameta.
Vachaschanas vadyadi tengri shobha.
Vachashanastula sivadyadi tangri grishobha.
Uryetate gunaganer yadi karnarandraha.
Goyetate gunakane yadi karnarandraha. Kamam bhava swavijaner nirayeshu nastat.
Kamam bhava swavijaner nirayeshu nastat.
Ceto livadyadi nute parayorameta.
Cheto levadyadi nuti padayorameta.
Vachashanastula sivadyadi tangri shobha.
Vachashanastulasi vadyadi tengri shobha.
Puryetate gunagane yadi karna ranjaha.
Puryetate gunaganer jadi karnarandraha.
Kamam,
Kamam,
as much as deserved.
as much as deserved.
Vavaha,
Bhavaha,
birth.
birth.
Swa,
Swa,
virginai,
virginality,
by our own sinful activities.
by our own sinful activities.
Nirayeshu,
Nirayeshu,
in low birth.
in low births.
Na,
our,
Stat,
Stat,
let it be.
let it be.
Chaitaha,
Chetaha,
minds.
minds.
Alivat,
Alivat,
like bees.
like bees.
Yadi,
Yadi,
if. Nu,
Nu,
maybe.
maybe.
Te, your.
Your.
Padayo,
Padayo,
at your lotus feet.
at your lotus feet.
Rameta,
Rameta,
are engaged.
are engaged.
Vachaha,
Vachaha,
words. Cha,
Cha,
and.
Na,
our. Tulasi,
Tulasi,
Vat, like the tulasi leaves.
like the Tulasi leaves.
Yadi,
Yadi,
if.
Te,
your.
your.
Angry,
Angry,
at your lotus feet.
at your lotus feet.
Shobha,
Shobha,
beautified.
beautified.
Puryeta,
Puryeta,
are filled.
are filled.
Te, your.
Your.
Guna,
Guna,
Ganai,
Ganai,
by transcendental qualities.
by transcendental qualities.
Yadi,
Yadi,
if. Karna,
Karna,
Randra,
Randra,
the holes of the ears.
the holes of the ears.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Jai
Jai
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
O Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish condition of life, just as long as our hearts and minds are always engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Our words are made beautiful by speaking of your activities, just as tulasi leaves are beautified when offered unto your lotus feet. And as long as our ears are always filled with the chanting of your transcendental qualities. Purport. The four sages now offer their humility to the personality of Godhead because of their having been haughty and cursing two other devotees of the Lord. Jai and Vijay, the two doorkeepers who checked them from entering the Vaikuntha planet, were certainly offenders, but as Vaishnavas, the four sages should not have cursed them in anger. After the incident, they became conscious that they had done wrong by cursing the devotees of the Lord, and they prayed to the Lord that even in the hellish condition of life, their minds might not be distracted from the engagement of service to the lotus feet of Lord Narayana. Those who are devotees of the Lord are not afraid of any condition of life, provided there is constant engagement in the service of the Lord. It is said of the Narayana Para, or those who are devotees of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nakutashchana Bibyati, Bhagavatam 6:17-28. They are not afraid of entering a hellish condition, for since they are engaged in the loving transcendental service of the Lord, heaven or hell is the same for them. In material life, both heaven and hell are one and the same because they are material. In either place, there is no engagement in the Lord's service. Therefore, those who are engaged in the service of the Lord see no distinction between heaven and hell. It is only the materialists who prefer one to the other. These four devotees prayed to the Lord that although they might go to hell because they had cursed devotees, they might not forget the service of the Lord. The transcendental, loving service of the Lord is performed in three ways: with the body, with the mind, and with words. Here the sages pray that their words may always be engaged in glorifying the Supreme Lord. One may speak very nicely with ornamental language, or one may be expert at controlling grammatical presentation. But if one's words are not engaged in the service of the Lord, they have no flavor and no actual use.
No flavor.
The example is given here of tulasi leaves. The tulasi leaf is very useful, even from the medicinal or antiseptic point of view. It is considered sacred and is offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. The tulasi leaf has numerous good qualities, but if it were not offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, tulasi could not be of much value or importance. Similarly, one may speak very nicely from the rhetorical or grammatical point of view, which may be very much appreciated by a materialistic audience. But if one's words are not offered to the service of the Lord, they are useless. The holes of the ears are very small, and can be filled with any insignificant sound. So how can they receive as great a vibration as the glorification of the Lord? The answer is that the holes of the ears are like the sky. As the sky can never be filled up, the quality of the ear is such that one may go on pouring in vibrations of various kinds, yet it is capable of receiving more and more vibrations. A devotee is not afraid of going to hell if he has the opportunity to hear the glories of the Lord constantly. This is the advantage of chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One may be put in any condition, but God gives him the prerogative to chant Hare Krishna. In any condition of life, if one goes on chanting, he will never be unhappy.
Wow.
Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunalitamina Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Padakamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Haripriye Panchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Haribo! Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimate Dhanavir Goswami Namane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurmani Charani Shri Shri Vari Prashad. Okay. The holes of the ears are very small and can be filled with any insignificant sound. So how can they receive such a great vibration as the glorification of the Lord? That's one of the things in the purport that Prabhupada said. We were hearing how the people might say so many nice words, but if they're not engaged in the service of the Lord, then what's the use? They might give a nice presentation. It might be filled with lots of artistic word jugglery and grammatical acrobatics, but if it's not glorifying the Lord, the Bhagavatam says it's Shrama Evahi Kevalam. That's man, we're having some trouble with the verses this week. What is let me find
number.
Yeah.
1, 2, 7.
Yes, 126.
Let's see. Dharma svanushtita pumsam vishvakshena kata suyaha nodpadayad yadiratim shrama evahi kevalam. The occupational activities a man performs, according to his own position, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So whatever it is, it's useless. If it's not giving attraction to the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it's useless labor and useless words. Once, when I first came home from the Bhakta program, and I was visiting my parents, I wanted to do something Krishna conscious. So on the TV, I played like a 30-minute lecture that a devotee gave at a really big business company, because I thought, they'll be interested in that, and this devotee will speak something about Krishna. So there wasn't really much directly about Krishna in there, from what I can remember. But for me, it was decent, because I'm like, okay, there's a devotee on the screen, and what he's saying, I can, like, in my mind, relate that to Krishna consciousness.
And so I thought, this is nice engagement. It's like almost Krishna conscious, and it's related, to ISKCON in some way. But then after the video is finished, I was thinking, wow, just see, like, now my parents are going to be pure devotees. But, so I was telling them, see, he's saying, like, it's important, to, like, serve Krishna. And then my father said, no, I don't think, he definitely didn't say anything like that. He's saying that it's important to, get a job and take care of your family. I was like, so, in that way, in one sense, it was a useless waste of time, because the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead wasn't gotten across from that speaking, even though it was really nicely spoken and enjoyable to hear. So, if our words aren't directly glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are leading one to devotional service, because that might also be there. It might not be that, every time you walk in somewhere you're saying, oh, hello, like, my name is such and such. Did you know Prabhupada said this? And in Bhagavatam verse 1, this, it says that. And then, like, right when the devotee is telling you, like, Prabhu, so what Sankirtan spot should we go to? Then you're like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's like, so it's there. It might be leading to devotional service. Like, we see Srila Prabhupada, people like to give this example. I don't actually know where it's from, but he was speaking to someone about cars in order to engage that person in devotional service, whatever that example is from. But we see so many things like that. Something like our own spiritual master might speak to some devotee or to us at length about some intricate topic in the material world, some, like Chandan was saying yesterday, politics or something. Or I remember Maharaj speaking one time to someone out in the prasadam hall, and it was about cricket, but it was because that person was attached to watching cricket.
So funny.
Everyone was there, and it was like a nice Krishna conscious moment.
That was hilarious.
So the topic might not specifically be like, okay, Krishna in Vrindavan, but it's leading someone to serving Krishna in Vrindavan. So that's the point, is that it's leading to devotional service. It's for the purpose of engaging in devotional service. And then it's not a useless waste of time at all. Actually, by such topics, even though, let me find the verse for this one, because it's really ecstatic. No, about the sun taking away the life of people.
Is that in the fourth canto?
This
I know the Bhajan version.
Here it is, Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.17. Ayor harati vai pumsam udyanastam chiyanaso tasyarte yat shano nita uttama shloka vartaya. By rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. So everyone's dying and getting old. Women are always concerned about getting old. They want to get lots of cream for their face and put it on. But the cream actually makes them older because it has things like mineral oil in it that dries out your skin and makes it worse. Anyway, so they get poisonous creams and put it on their face and all these other things to try to be young. And so I told my mom, because I was trying to get her to read the books of Srila Prabhupada, that if you actually, do you really want to be young? And she actually got a little bit interested. I said, then you should constantly hear and chant the glories of God. If you read these books, you'll actually become younger. Like, and you can see all these devotees. Everyone say it's in the newspapers, or it used to be, that they're bright-faced and all of these things. So they're very youthful. And why? Because the sun isn't stealing away their life every day, but it's actually, they're becoming younger because they're not the body, which is getting old every day, but they're the soul, which is eternal. And so by hearing about Krishna, they're coming back to their natural eternal position in the spiritual world. So the sun is taking away the life of everybody, but if one really wants to stay young, they can hear and discuss the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that, so I was just making that point because those topics aren't useless like so many other things that people may speak, even if they're speaking something nicely. Let's see. So the devotees, they only want to hear, they only want to be engaged in the service of the Lord, and then in that way they're satisfied. Prabhupada is making the point that heaven and hell are both hellish because the devotional service of the Lord isn't there. we see the demigods are devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they're also lining up, Srila Prabhupada once said, to take birth in the Sankirtan mission, where they can be engaged in the Lord's service. So, in the heavenly planets, there's so much opportunity for sense gratification. Your body's very beautiful. There's extremely beautiful, compared to Earth, extremely beautiful women who are, young and like, you don't get, they're lusty. You don't get reactions like here for illicit sex life.
So you don't get as lusty?
No, I said they're lusty.
Oh, they're lusty.
There's apsaras. So yeah, people get some reaction here for sex life, but in the heavenly planets, there's not a reaction like that. But there is tons of drama that happens because of it. So one person wants another one's wife, and then get cursed to like suffer for thousands of years, and so like that. There's too much sense gratification in the heavenly planets, so there's not that opportunity to be engaged uninterrupted and unmotivated in the Lord's service, ahetukiya pratiyata, uninterrupted and without some motivation. There is some motivation there, I'll do my yagyas and these kind of things, and I'll keep enjoying sense gratification. And then in the hellish planets, you're just suffering way too much to even think about it, You're literally getting tortured by people who you stand no match against. It's like crazy. You can't mess with the Yamakutas. It's like a brick wall of a person. It's like, you can't mess with them. This is a side point, and you can take it with a grain of salt, but the Christians and other people, sometimes they like to put their testimonies of their
prophecies.
No, their near-death experiences and how they saw hell supposedly. And I wouldn't usually give any credit to any of that until if they say things that line up with the descriptions of hell that we see in Scripture, then it's a little bit interesting. Mm-hmm. So some of them say things that line up. They say, I was on the operating bed, or I was overdosed or whatever. I was half conscious, and these huge, really scary looking guys came to get me, and I just could no matter how much I fought or anything, I couldn't even budge them, and they're just laughing and taking me away. And I'm that's pretty interesting. And then they'll say I saw people being thrown in boiling oil, and I saw other people being other descriptions that we see being eaten by different animals and stuff like this. So hellish planets. So the hellish planets are
Now we're talking.
It's hard to engage in the Lord's service because one's suffering so much. So, but the devotee, they don't mind heaven or hell. If they're able to engage in the Lord's service, then it's the same. Because that's all they're interested in. They want to be fully engaged in the Lord's service. Then there's not actually suffering. Like Srila Prabhupada said at the end, if one is always engaged in the Lord's service, he'll never be unhappy. So, if one's really unhappy, then they should engage in Krishna's service. And if they're happy, they should engage in service. But if they're really unhappy, then like we were saying in another class, then in one sense, they're probably doing something wrong. Because if you're fully engaged in Krishna's service, you might be in some horrible circumstances, but in some way, you'll be satisfied. Because you see, you're making eternal progress. You're getting towards the goal. The material world is terrible. That's just how it's going to be. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that it's dukalayam ashashvatam. It's not only is it miserable, but it's also temporary. So you're never going to make a nice situation because it's always changing. It's not going to happen. And it's miserable, which means it's not very nice. So it's that's the material world. So whatever's going on, that's going to be the situation. But if one is engaging in Krishna service, no matter how miserable the material world might be around them, they're getting out of it. So they're on the way out. It's a good deal. So there's not that much room for lamenting, hankering, being unhappy. So if someone's engaging Krishna service, no matter where they are, to some extent there will be happiness. I'm saying to some extent because in my head while I'm saying this, I'm thinking of so if someone's in the worst condition, it seems it's pretty tough. But to some extent, there's the satisfaction and bliss of Krishna consciousness, and all other sorts of good feelings. There's the hope and everything because they're going in the right direction. I was just remembering that book, Salted Bread, this morning. That's a really horrible situation. I can never forget the devotee was saying he's being interrogated by this KGB guy, and the KGB guy puts his fingers in the hinge of the door
Yeah.
area and slams it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And it's like, that's so disturbing. But even that devotee, he didn't like get like depressed or like overly lamenting and like hankering for material sense gratification and just give up. You know, he could have. The whole book is about at every moment there's an opportunity for this devotee to not suffer immensely if he just gives up practicing Krishna consciousness, at least in an obvious way. You know, he could have said like, okay, I don't believe in this, and then go home and like chant Hare Krishna when the KGB is not there, and then be, you know, pretty fine. But he doesn't, and neither do any of the devotees that were there with him. They stuck to it that okay, we're sticking with this whole practice that God has given and that our spiritual master has instructed us in, regardless of whatever the, you know, material consequences are and however much suffering comes. And there was like happiness and bliss there actually, and like, which is hard to believe. It's like, you know, it's beyond anything we can like conceive of. It sounds weird to say it. It's like contradictory, but it's because it's beyond the material world. So there, you know, there's all this crazy suffering there, but then they're speaking about how, yeah, we got to preach to these prisoners, and it's so amazing to see them take up Krishna consciousness. We got to distribute prasadam. We got to celebrate the Lord's appearance days in like this like small way, and it was a big deal. And you know, there's some real like nectar of Krishna consciousness in that book. So wherever someone is, even, I mean, you could say that's definitely hell. I mean, that's like not completely non-different from hell, the situation they're in. And they're happy because they're engaging in the Lord's service in some way. At least maybe if they're not, you know, ecstatic and exuberant, they're like, you know, they know that they're doing the right thing, and that's like real happiness. They're you know, they're giving some pleasure to Krishna and their spiritual master, and that's, you know, that's real happiness. So they're experiencing that. And then the other thing that Srila Prabhupada was speaking on in the purport is using the words to glorify the Supreme Lord and not, you know, and then on the contrary, the whole bogus speaking that someone might do. They might speak very nicely, ornamental language, controlled grammar, but if it's not actually engaged in the service of the Lord, there's no flavor and no actual use. And that's also touched on in the Salted Bread book, because, yeah, at any point they could have given it up and, you know, everything would be fine. But for the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement and for preaching Krishna consciousness, that was a big point that they were sticking with it. Because, you know, if they say, okay, yeah, this is all bogus and da-da-da-da, then the KGB uses that more to push back the movement. So they were, you know, they're preaching through their actions of, you know, sticking it out like that and not compromising. So it's a big deal, the way that they were acting to engage in the Lord's service without compromise. They were fully dedicated to glorifying the Lord. But now one could do something a little different. They could think, okay, I want to please the public, and that's like the main priority. So I'll sacrifice on the glorification of the Lord. That'll be the expense. I'll get rid of some of that for pleasing the public more. But we see those devotees who like really went through these difficulties to please Krishna, they're doing the exact opposite. They're like putting their life, they're suffering, they're putting their life on the line, getting tortured, all this suffering for glorifying the Lord. So anyway, I don't know how I can bring it up in the live. Anyway, it's a little weird that at the end of that book, there's this article actually given, because, you know, it's such an amazing book about these devotees taking such risk to glorify Krishna. But then for some reason, and anyway, maybe I should ask that devotee about it first before saying something on the live stream. But anyway, I'll just make a small point. That at the end, there's an article that's kind of contrary to the whole book, where these devotees are doing so. If they just compromised on what the public wanted for the they'd be able to, you know, save their lives, you know, because some of them died in there, and they'd be able to not suffer so much. But they didn't. They just kept sticking with, you know, Krishna consciousness is the fact, and sticking with it as it is, and they were suffering more and more. then after the book is over, there's an article that's presenting this idea that we hear very often, how if we're just like a nice person and we go along with modern society in a nice way. I'm paraphrasing a lot, but it's presenting that idea that if we go along with modern society and just seem nice, and people, become more attracted to us, then there's more scope for preaching Krishna consciousness. And I'm paraphrasing a lot, but that's the general idea of this article in the end. But that is the complete opposite idea of what that whole book is giving. And that article is written by someone else. So anyway, I'll ask that devotee about that sometime. But I did want to speak on that point more of, sometimes people want to present this whole thing that, okay, instead of preaching Krishna consciousness as it is, and speaking what Srila Prabhupada spoke, which are strong words, because the Srimad Bhagavatam itself is strong words. It's a let me find the exact verse here. I'll give it to you from the Bhagavatam itself, its own definition. Sorry. Okay. So from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.11, Tadvavisargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abhadyavatyapi namadyanantasya yashon kitaniyat shrinvanti gayanti grananti sadhavaha. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So Srila Prabhupada's words and the words of Shastra are revolutionary. They're bringing a revolution into the change of the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. So from that you can get the whole sense that it's going completely against what the whole civilization is for. From that, just from that one verse, we can understand civilization is misdirected, so it's going in the wrong direction. And then these words of the Bhagavatam, they bring about a whole revolution. So it's a total pushback. A revolution means you're turning the other way. Misdirected means you got to turn it back around. So it's going to be the exact opposite. Those words that are glorifying the Supreme Lord and the message of the Supreme Lord. It's the opposite of what this modern civilization is giving. But some people might get the idea that we'll become more popular and have more opportunity to preach Krishna consciousness if we give things that go along with civilization. Where that idea comes from, I don't know. It's like an easygoing idea, even though we hear in the Bhagavatam that an easygoing life and Krishna consciousness, they don't go together. But the idea is if we go in the same direction as everyone, then no one's rubbed the wrong way, and they might like us, and we can get along. So instead of preaching that schools are slaughterhouses and women's liberation is a ploy made by men in order to exploit women, and what else? That so many things that go against. Yeah, that people are thieves. They have so much money, but it actually belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's meant to be engaged in His service. So many things. Instead of preaching the difficult things that might come up in Shastra, instead speaking about things that people like. Like, okay, we look spiritual and we look like, we talk about devotional service, so the word service is there, so we can tell people that we do community service. And we feed the homeless because a hungry man fed is God's smile on the world, or something like that. So we feed people with mundane food. We don't tell them anything about offering it to Krishna and that it's prasadam and now it's spiritualized because it came in contact with the Lord and that you're not the body. But no, we just feed people mundane food so that they won't be hungry. And we make mundane schools so that people can get an education, so that they can get a job as a Shudra for some boss who makes some useless like thing, some computer, some computer chip that's mostly used for creating pornography. And then what else do? We make nice school, nice feeding people. Anything else?
Nice wife.
Yeah, take care of your family. Don't give too much money to the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement. That 50% thing is an outdated instruction, but you need enough to have an oversized house, an oversized apartment that you don't even clean.
Make sure they have good iPhones.
Yeah, make sure your kids have good iPhones.
Teslas.
And anyway, I don't know that people preach those exactly like spot on, but so I might say all these other things. We're feeding people, doing charity, and all of this, but then those words are completely useless because they're not actually saving them. You might say all those things and you might present it very nicely in a way that people agree with, and then more karmis say, "Oh, very nice," but it's not saving anyone from the cycle of birth and death. So they might feed all the children they want, but they still have to take birth again and be hungry again. And also, depending on what they're feeding them, they might take birth in a lower species and then be fed to a hungry child. It's just not solving anything, actually. It's completely useless. Shrameva hi kevalam. But if one was instead just preaching the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then all the people that they're preaching to would actually be benefited, and they wouldn't mistake mundane activity in the material world that binds one to the material world with pure devotional service. We see when these things are preached in place of pure devotional service, then people mix up the two, and someone might start saying, my like medical work is my Sankirtan, and my what else? My like feeding the homeless is my devotional service. Yeah, all these things. So yeah, that is just so in the end of that book, when this article comes up after these devotees are risking their lives for spreading Krishna consciousness, and some of them do actually leave their body and they go through so much suffering, then this article is saying, well, actually, we should go along with society. And devotional service means to accept there's a verse in there that's not quoted correctly. The wording is changed from the Bhagavatam, and the way the wording is changed makes it sound like it's our duty. Devotee means someone who takes on, because there's that verse after Lord Shiva drinks the ocean that explaining how devotees go through great difficulties for the purpose of benefiting others. So they're engaging in devotional service, like the preachers, they go out and preach among materialistic people. People are distributing books. People are building temples in very difficult situations, like when that Bombay temple was being built. So a devotee, they take on great difficulties and austerities not for their own sake, but for benefiting all living entities. By what's the benefit? They give them Krishna consciousness. But if you can reword that verse to make it sound like the devotee takes on the difficulties of the world for benefiting people. So the devotee, they take on the hunger of the world, and they start, making mundane meals for people to feed them, and they take on the sickness of the world, and they make many hospitals and other sort of medical arrangements so that people can have strong bodies to continue their sense gratification. And like this, they take on, they take on the hard workforce of the world and get a nice job in AI and computers so that there can be more pornography businesses and all these things. So if the message is changed to make it seem like we're just some, nice people that are helping in a mundane way in society, then the whole point is lost. It becomes useless. And also it's not worth it, because if you're trying to please materialists, karmis, or people whose senses aren't controlled, it doesn't work, because at any second they could do anything for their sense gratification. That's explained in the Krishna book, when Kamsa, he can be pretty cool sometimes. Almost any of the bad people in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic scriptures, they can be pretty decent people actually at times, and pretty cool, and seem like a nice, attractive person. They're very powerful, they're pretty Vedic, they're pretty decent sometimes.
In the wars, they would meet together, hang out with each other, Jarasandha, and then would hang out.
yeah, there's all sorts of cool instances where you hear about them, acting personal and, kind of nice. But if a person's senses are not controlled, they can't be trusted because at any second they'll do whatever it takes to satisfy their senses if their sense gratification is hampered. So you don't know what it is, but right when the pin, hits that one point, right when that one button's pushed, then anything can happen. They'll nuke you or whatever. So it was like that with Kamsa. We see he was fine. He's doing something that we always glorify as being very humble because Krishna, he drives the chariot of Arjuna, and we say, isn't that amazing? He's taking that service position to his own devotee. Kamsa is also doing a nice service position. He was taking the chariot reins of his sister, so we see that's admirable. And he's driving them on her marriage day. It's and we can understand he probably made so many arrangements too. He has so much money, so much power. All of that description we hear there, all those chariots and elephants, horses, decorated. I'm sure a lot of that is funded by him in some way. It's coming from his father, Ugrasena, but Kamsa's like a powerhouse, so some of that's probably, we can assume he probably gave a lot of money. So many nice things, but then the one thing, there's one pinprick in the nice situation that the 8th child of your sister will kill you. Boom, all bets off. He's grabbing her head, he's ready to cut her head off. Before that, he wasn't even harming women, actually. We see when he was recruiting all these different demons to be on his, his A-list team with himself as the quarterback, he fought so many of them and completely crushed them. But with Putana, he didn't fight her, touch her, because she's a woman, so he wasn't going to do that. But even his high standard of morality there is completely out the window once he learns that his body, which is so cherished and he did all these austerities for, is going to be destroyed. Then he's ready, he grabs her by the hair, like that's pretty offensive. And then he's ready to cut her head off. So, like that, people might try to please materialists, but because their senses are uncontrolled, it's a complete useless waste of time. If you just give them Krishna consciousness, then whether they're so-called pleased, so-called not pleased, however their mind and their feelings are feeling in the moment, it doesn't matter, because they're a soul. Jiversur Bahoy, Krishna and Nityadas. They're a soul, and no matter what's going on with the body is covered in so many ways, but the soul can actually benefit from Krishna consciousness, even if it doesn't understand what's going on. Like you can read the Bhagavatam to a baby in the womb, you can give prasadam to a dog or some other small animal, and whatever. No matter how covered over something is, if it's getting the opportunity of devotee association, the holy name, transcendental sound vibration, prasadam, all these things, it's getting the benefit. Even if people don't know what it means, we hear that all the time. It's like Harinam's going on, people hear the holy name and the clapping and all the, they might not have any idea what it means, but they're getting the benefit. So if someone gives direct Krishna consciousness to someone, in some form, even if it seems like their feelings are agitated or whatever, they're getting benefited. Whereas on the other hand, if you give them some other thing to try to please them, it might look like they're pleased, but at the end of the day, they're not. Just like Kamsa, because their senses aren't controlled, they'll completely turn on you. And so an example that I'm making this point around is this devotee, Suvarnabinda Prabhu. He's super fired up in California. He was the Bhakti leader in LA for some time, and he was telling us how when he first came to Krishna consciousness in Russia or Croatia, devotees told him about it and everything, and he was like a DJ or someone who does like parties and stuff. Yeah, he was some person who organizes big like fired up get-togethers in the material world. So then he just started doing that for Krishna consciousness. In the first 3 weekends, or first like couple weeks of him being a devotee, he had events where hundreds of people were coming, chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam, and just being fired up for Krishna consciousness. And he was thinking, oh my God, this movement is about to take over the world, like in the next couple months. Because he said like literally hundreds of people. So that was like really fired up. But one part of the story he was telling us was that I think it was when he was, or his friend, I think it was when he was at the temple for the first time in Croatia, like in a Bhakti program or something. He was getting into it and everything. And then his parents came, and, they're a little disturbed that their son is now practicing this and everything. So then the Bhakti leader, instead of, like sticking to his guns and just preaching Krishna consciousness, your son, it might look like he's not doing something beneficial and working, but 10 generations of his family back, 10 generations forward will be benefited if he takes the Krishna consciousness. You know, he's watering the root of the tree, so the benefit's going to everyone, not just the leaves. Da, da, da. If he just preaches these simple points of Krishna consciousness, you know, that's nice, and they also get the benefit. But instead, he just started conforming to the parents' idea. He was saying, yeah, actually, it would be good if, you know, your son spends more time with you and, you know, goes back to school and finishes this. And so Prabhu was there and he was thinking, like, why is he saying like that? Like, what's going on? And so this devotee was saying all that, thinking he's gonna like please the parents and they'll be happy. And then Suvarnabinda Prabhu, I'm pretty sure it was him, not his friend, but yeah, so I think it's him. So then so then he goes back home with his parents. And he said once he gets back home, although the parents, when they were there with the devotee, they're like, yes, very nice, wow, you're such a gentleman, such nice boy, oh my, uru, you know, they're like, they think he's so sweet and gentlemanly and well behaved, and then so afterwards he's probably thinking, oh, I made such good impression, they're so pleased with me and they think I'm such a sweet boy. But then they go home and he said the whole time his parents were just talking about how weird that guy was. Like, that guy's a freaking weirdo, why was he so strange, he's creepy as hell, I don't like that guy at all. You know, they just totally, you know, so you might go all out of the way, waste time to try to preach some other thing that you think is going to please the karmis, but their senses aren't controlled. So just like the Bhagavatam, I always remember this wording, I don't remember where it is, but it says a woman, she puts on a show of love to attract her husband. It's a show. It's like a big charade of love to attract the husband. In the same way, the karmis, they put on a big charade of, oh yes, very nice, you're such a gentleman, so amazing, you've made such good impression on me. But then afterwards, they go and complain that, you know, these guys are looting me, and it's always the people that were nice to on Sankirtan that go and write these complaints. There's like another person out there that we like call the demon because he's a demon. But then the people that were so nice to write some complaint, these guys are looting and they're such terrible guys. It's like, dude, you were like smiling the whole time and like, you know.
Thank you so much.
So at the end of the day, it's much more worth it to just preach Krishna consciousness as it is than try to make some, you know, sweet adjustment for the feelings of the karmis that at the expense of giving them Krishna consciousness. Those are just a few points on that. Is there any corrections, comments?
Right. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj was just mentioning that in the class that somebody asked a great preacher of our movement, preacher of our movement, that he, why do you wear the saffron? And he said, just like milk tastes so much better when you put saffron in it. And so we wear saffron to, I don't know what the hell that means at all. Like, what does that have to do with... But anyway, this is making the point that it's just so crazy, like to try to please the karmis, and devotees go to such a length under under such difficult circumstances to uphold the Krishna consciousness movement. But in a time and place right now in the world where everybody's accepting of different movements and ideas, to a point where we're in a redneck country and people are a little, some people are a little agitated, but most people are pretty supportive. That's pretty significant. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you come out here with this dress and black, they're gonna ask you to leave right now, or you're about to die or something. They're gonna attack you. We're in a time where we can be so open with Krishna consciousness. There's no problem, and we're also in a time where there's so many demons that are performing so many terrible acts, like you're talking about Kamsa and all of this. Actually, all of the president of the United States currently, and all of the rich people, they just released these Epstein files.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. Basically, all these great leaders of our society, even people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, Donald Trump, the previous president, what's his name? Bill Clinton. And then there's so many other names in there, all basically just going to an island and having sex with children.
Oh, that's what that is.
They all got exposed.
I always heard about something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's either that
They
were
all got
doing that or they were
exposed?
somehow connected to Epstein and doing it. So
Yeah.
not of all of them were directly involved.
A lot of them were, at least these
A lot of
personalities, they would email them, and then apparently there's like Ali was saying that they're eating babies and things like that over there. So
It's true.
yeah, it's pretty insane. And these are the leaders of the society, and they're trying to just kind of cover it up or just shrug it out and shrug it off, like, okay, Trump released a statement saying America should get over it. It's like you know what you did, like there's a lot of people that are like, there's like victims, like survivors and all this stuff, It's like it's pretty crazy, especially the amount of exploitation of sex that went on and to underage people.
Oh my god.
And they're demons of society, and they were just doing some crazy things. They were using like young women as human incubators, and all that sort of type of weird stuff. They would, this personality would have their teenage, what is it, like a fashion show, and basically he used that as a front to sell all these teenage girls to this Epstein on his island. And so they would, because they're young girls, like 14 and 15. It's like, yeah, I'll give you a lot of money, and all this jewelry and this, and why don't you come on down? And, then they exploit them like that. And, the girls go along with it in that time, and they don't realize what's going on. They kind of, young women. And so all this was going on, and it's kind of, and all of them were lying about it, even though they did it, saying no, in front of a camera in national television. No, I didn't do it. I never even associated with that fellow. I would never even talk to him. He's such a disgusting guy. And then the file comes out, and this guy has like a bunch of emails saying, when can I come?
That's freaking crazy.
When is the wildest party? I want to come to the wildest party.
Crazy.
And it's just like, like you're saying, Kamsa, it's like we have, good amount of them just as the leaders of the society, and to go with that society, and for devotees to think that we should follow that society and we should go along with that society is absolutely ludicrous.
Insane, yeah.
These are the people that are leading the society. They're molesters. They're killers. They're murderers. These are the people. And what are they propagating? This feminism, this, that. This is what the propagation is. And you want to go along with that nonsense? And then criticize Srila Prabhupada and everybody else that goes towards that? Then they're no better than the demons. Those who push towards that. No, we shouldn't follow Vedic culture. No, we shouldn't. Prabhupada's books, yes, they're outdated, or they're not meant for the society, and they shouldn't be read. We should read some other books instead. And Prabhupada's books are we should understand Prabhupada's books through someone else. And because they're too hard and heavy for us to understand. All this nonsense is just a symptom of the demoniac influence of the current society. I'm just thinking, like, I hate here. It's just like, I don't like, it was it disturbed my mind so much last night. It took me some time to fall asleep. Because it's just like, oh my God, this, like, the type of people that we're like leading our country, leading this country and leading the civilization. And America is meant to be the head of all nations and all this. And everybody's wanting to follow that. That's what you want to follow, it's like, yeah, it's like, and there's a need for us to preach strongly against this, like Srila Prabhupada wanted, against this demoniac civilization, not conform with it, and not say everything is wonderful and this saffron is just like milk, and you dip that saffron in milk, it becomes so much nicer. Like, none of that crap. Like, what is this saffron? It's meant against everything that this civilization goes for. That's what it is. It's burning the body in the fire of spiritual life. That's what it is. It's fire. That's what this is about. And that's what Krishna consciousness is. It's the fire by which we burn our material existence up. Like, tell them that. That will get more, they may think we're fanatical on this, but there are a few intelligent people who pick up, go, you know what, he's right. We don't want these low class, low intelligence people, we don't need all their saying. it's just gonna end up a big mess. And I was just thinking that yesterday. I was just like, wow. And then Guru Maharaj released that lecture on the app just today, I think, talking about initiation and these people that are out there just preaching just straight nonsense in the name of Krishna consciousness, straight just useless asar, so-called devotees of the line of the parampara, just no use. They can't do any good. They do so much harm. And Mukunda Datta Prabhu is saying that one deviation by one person in parampara and finished, everything is finished. You
He said
can't
a
get
whole generation. He said like a whole generation.
Yeah, one generation
is like completely just like
all it
lost.
takes.
wiped them out. That's what's happened. Like you look around and it's just lost. Everything is going. We're losing it. It's difficult. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it's just I don't. It's hard to kind of. We've been saved by our good fortune, by our spiritual masters, in helping us understand the real position of the civilization and the real position of Krishna consciousness. But most other devotees are just absorbed in that because we're eating farming grains. We're eating that nonsense that they're feeding us. We're consuming their nonsense that they're giving on the internet and illicit sex, and all this is going on. That's just some point, sir. I'm gonna wrap.
Yeah, I don't see why someone would want to cozy up to modern society if you just see what regularly goes on in it. I mean, everyone's eating. I mean, most of the people are eating beef. If you just go for like a minute around some cows, how could you not like become just angry at the modern civilization? That sounds like a simple thing, especially to someone who's like a meat eater. They'll just be like, well, "What the heck, like, well, you toughen up or what?" But no, it's so insane. If we get the opportunity to get the right thing from Srila Prabhupada's books, and then you hear like what's a standard of a human culture, it seems crazy to not want to fight back in some, because you have all the ammunition. If you're hearing a class right now, or if you chanted Hare Krishna this morning, or like saw any devotees, by now you have all the ammunition because you have Prabhupada's books. You've like got some of the philosophy. So to not want to fight back against the demoniac civilization is completely insane after you get what the right idea is. Because if you just see what's going on, it's totally crazy. Like you're already saying, but I'm just thinking of these two other examples. Like it's really disturbing, but just because for that video I had to, one of the things, the personality of sin, the Papa Purusha described in, I think it's like the Padma Purana or somewhere, his limbs are different sinful activities, and his chest, or like his lower chest, is the sin of abortion. And so I had to, show that somehow in this video with this sinful personality, and then, some sort of image to get that idea across. But I was thinking, I don't know how that's actually done. Like, do they take some tong and grab the babies? So I had to looked it up on Google, and just the little snippet that it gives you, that little paragraph under the search bar when you like search something, and it gives a little summary. Just that in itself is so disturbing. And I was like kind of stunned for like a minute. Like, I can't believe I'm living in this civilization where they like vacuum babies out of mothers and then just kill them like you kill any other type
Some of them they just they take tweezers and they go in and they crush the skull and then they pull it out.
Yeah, and it's mentioned, and people might be like, people might say that's too disturbing, but it's also in recordings with Srila Prabhupada where you can hear on different like morning walks and recordings where one devotee's a doctor or scientist type of person, and he was talking about how other doctors and people are disturbed at these abortion clinics because sometimes the baby, at least at that time in the 70s, some of the babies would still be moving around in like the disposal area. But people think, oh, it's such a nice society. I want to send my daughter to the college and my children, and I want to be more involved with this civilization rather than fighting back against it in some form. You can fight with Srila Prabhupada's ecstatic book distribution. Just Harinam, just go on Harinam for like an hour. If that's all, even that is like such a powerful thing. So those two things, the abortions, that's like everywhere, and then also the slaughterhouses.
Can they be considered devotees?
So disturbing.
Can they even be considered devotees? People who like go forward with this, although they dress in tilak and kantimala, and they chant Hare Krishna, because there's that. I know there's that. Guru Maharaj talks about karmis and dressed devotees or demons and dressed devotees. Like, is it proper to even consider them devotees? Should you be careful, like, even dealing with such people, or should you like
Satsanga, the Vaishnava, the one should just avoid it. Avoid that. Just that one avoids the association of non-devotees. Then what is a devotee? They have to follow the principles of devotional service. Maybe not pure devotional service may not be there. That's okay, but at least some mixed devotional service should be at least there. If to have some appreciation. Otherwise, they're just same platform as demons. What's the difference? You eat we often say, you eat like one, you watch things like one. You
like one.
speak like one, you walk like one, you dress like one. What are you?
Quack like a duck.
Quack like
a
it.
duck. Looks like a duck.
Yeah, no, and it's like, no, we're all transcendental. In the who was saying that? I think Mukunda Prabhu or somebody in the of that we're transcendental. But I was thinking, if you read Prabhupada's books, nowhere does Prabhupada said wants to transcend his position. If you read the 18th chapter, Prabhupada says that one should realize what one's nature is of this body and use that in Krishna service. In that way, one transcends oneself. Not that one gives up his position. Actually, people have twisted. It's just the funny thing is with oh yeah, Prabhu, we're all transcendental. We're not man or women. Prabhupada doesn't say that. He says, yes, we're not man, we're not woman, but doesn't mean that we don't identify with that, but doesn't mean we don't utilize that. People think that we can just okay, I don't have to conform to that. Prabhupada says, no. The Bhagavad Gita makes a point. No, you do. Arjuna, you're a fighter. You have to fight. You have to fight. No, there's no question. The only way of transcending this is you fight. But our devotees go, I'm transcendental. I don't have to act like a woman anymore. I'm transcendental. I don't have to act like I can wear whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. But that's not what our Acharya said. I was thinking about that deeply. I was like, people, oh yeah, Prabhu, we're all transcendental. Yeah, what does that mean? That means that you just want to act according to your sense gratification, that's all. But if you look at what Prabhupada wanted, he wanted Varnashram. In Varnashram, you realize your position as a Shudra, as a Vaishya, as a Kshatriya or a Brahmana, not as a lower and higher thing, but as a nature that you have in order to engage it in Krishna consciousness. And when you can engage that, then that becomes transcendental. That can become transcendentalized. But if you don't recognize your nature and you don't act according to what you've been given in this life, according to guna and karma, and you try to just say I'm transcendental, then most likely that unless you're really a Paramahamsa and you whatever, but most likely you're just gonna fall down because you're acting in the wrong way. And even Paramahamsas, they act within their within the capacity that they have. They're not. You'll never see. Like apart from Janava Mata, who is the consort of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and very few others were women gurus. Like it's out of nature for a woman to be a Diksha guru. No, but we are transcendental. But that's not what Prabhupada's books say. One has to see what one's duties are in life and how they are seen by society. So devotees are not willing to see that, then we should see that. Should we really associate with these people? Maybe we can try to give them our association or good association, but if they become envious or they're gonna become envious, then we should just not worry about them. Save yourself.
Thank you for these points.
Right.
Okay,
Is
I
there
think.
Yeah, we can.
Is there anything else? Okay, yeah. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Can you turn off the live stream?
Oh yeah, sorry.